today's agenda, we have a few things listed. We have what is recovery coaching? What does a recovery coach do? Recovery coaching and integrated care. So what is the role within the integrated care program? And improved outcomes. Normally I would say, okay, ready, let's jump in. But today we're actually going to take a step back. All right, we're actually going to talk about what's the definition of addiction. This definition from the National Institute on Drug Abuse is the best one that we've found. It really sums it up nicely. Addiction is defined as a chronic, relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. So I think everyone in this room can agree. I know that in the past it's been a little it's alcohol addiction, it's not really a real thing, but I think everyone here can agree it is a real disease. We have lots of data. We've been able to show that. Again, it's chronic, relapsing brain disease characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. We know how dangerous it could be, and yet some people have that addiction and they keep seeking that use. Drug addiction is a brain disease that can be treated. Recovery is possible. We've seen it happen. We are in the business of making people become who they really are, and that to their fullest self, and that means recovery. Okay, so what is a recovery coach? Now we can jump into it. Recovery coaching is an emerging alternative service designed to help people suffering with substance use disorders live long-term substance-free life. Coaching services can support or be an alternative to clinical treatment for substance use disorders. And that really means that we're not just talking about a therapist. Recovery coaches are something unique. They have the title, like my marketing manager is my title. We do have recovery coaches as a full-time position. Coaches are not clinicians and they're not sponsors. They're peers who are also often in recovery themselves that are trained to assist others initiate and maintain recovery. So a sponsor is someone who is in recovery at the same time. We go into those meetings and they take somebody else under their wing and help guide them through the process, and can be somebody to be a buddy with in the program. Therapists are those who are professionally trained. They have license, they have continuing education credits, they've gone through schooling for a number of years, and they are trained in the clinical side. Recovery coaches are kind of in between. So somebody who's gone through recovery themselves or is in a situation where they're around people in recovery, and then they get additional training to become a recovery coach. So it's someone who hasn't gone to school to be a therapist, but they're not just also somebody to be a buddy with in the program. So they are trained, and they're somebody who the person in recovery can really count on and look to as somebody to guide them.
So they're recovering addicts as well.
Yep, most of the time.
That have gone through probably a program through a sponsor, now they're at the next level, a coach, but they're not a therapist.
Right. Yeah, they may never be a therapist.
Mhm.
They can go into, I think there've been a few instances, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's usually like a 3-week program that they have to go through to become a recovery coach. Yep.
So recovery coaching is a peer recovery services that include non-medical and non-clinical support, such as community groups, accountability partners, and goal setting tools. So again, it's somebody that's really there to help guide and support at every step in the real world with the person in recovery. And what does a recovery coach do? So on a day-to-day basis, what are they actually doing? What's their job responsibility? They help people create and develop their own recovery plans and pathways. And they provide individuals with tools, resources, and support that include emotional, informational, instrumental, and accountability. So yeah, that's somebody who is with them in the real world. They can call pretty much any time and actually get some help and guidance no matter where they are in their recovery stage. And especially in the beginning where they took the information that they've learned in therapy, or maybe in the IOP program, the intensive outpatient program, which is a structured 8-week program, at least with us. I think some of them change once in a while, there's some are 9 weeks, that could vary, but our IOP is 8 weeks. So somebody in recovery could be with a therapist in IOP, and then also they have this recovery coach. They take what they learn in recovery, in the IOP, They take what they learn with their therapist, and then the coach really helps guide them in the real world. So if somebody needs a bank account, they've never had one before, they can help set that up and really be that individual on, in their home, helping them out, going through the whole process and really helping them figure out their way in the world as somebody who's in recovery. All of our recovery coaches, our therapists, everyone in our program always looks to these 8 dimensions of wellness. And this is something that is not just progressive, this is out there. It's the SAMHSA. This one actually is adapted from the SABRIC wellness approach, and we can get you that if you'd like. But these 8 dimensions are really the ones that kind of oversee everything that we deal with in recovery. So you could take this as a tool, and anybody can actually use it and just check in with yourself in these 8 dimensions. And if one of these buckets is low, think of it as a wheel or a tire. If one of them is low, then the tire is going to start to go flat. If 2 of them are low, then you're really going to you're not going to go anywhere because the wheel is flat. So once you build that back up, you're able to move forward. So we're talking emotional, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational. Oh, it's so tiny, I'm sorry.
That's all right, that's all
Oh, it's good.
right. I need the glasses.
Intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. So that really encompasses all aspects of a regular functioning human being. So emotional, if your emotional health is not able to deal with your emotions, a lot of times people in recovery turn to their drug or alcohol because they couldn't deal with an emotion. So once they're able to overcome that and learn how to face the uncomfortable emotion and move past it, then they're able to fill up that bucket and deal with their emotional wellness. Environmental, if they're still in the same environment where the addiction was really taking hold, that's not going to be very conducive to long-term recovery. So we look at the environmental factors. Are they living in a good place? Are they around people who are going to continue tempting them? Financial, again, if you've never had a bank account before, or if you don't have a good steady stream of income, then it's going to be very difficult to be a normal functioning human being. So financial health is something that we've all dealt with, right? We have bank accounts that are nice and full, and sometimes they are negative, and that can be a big stumbling block for someone in recovery. Like, I have no money, where that need has to be met first before you're able to move on and become who you really want to be. Intellectual, if your brain's not stimulated, right, and you're just sitting there all day watching TV or something, then it's really easy to fall back into a habit. So a recovery coach can point someone in a direction that would be useful for them. Learning a new skill, learning a new trade, maybe they get enrolled in an automotive repair program so they can become a mechanic. Maybe it's getting into an art class so that their creativity is stimulated. Working towards something like mastering a skill is something that can really keep your brain active and build your confidence, which leads you to become a better, well-functioning human being. Occupational, again, if you don't have that day-to-day responsibility of going to a job and having that just interaction too, there's a lot of things that come from being in a job. And sometimes if the person is not able to have a full-time job, there are other ways to fulfill this need. You can join an organization, you can volunteer somewhere. So occupational doesn't necessarily have to mean full-time employment, but that is a key aspect that we look at in order to complete this circle. Physical, the more you take care of yourself, your body, which I know we've talked about in this room a couple months ago, the more you take care of yourself and you feel worthy and you feel confident in who you are, physically in your own body, the better outcome you'll have. Social, we are connected human beings. And if the last couple of years hasn't taught us that, I don't know what will, but we all need each other. We all need to be in situations like this, just interacting with other regular human beings. So in order to fulfill that bucket, we need to be able to be around other people. And sometimes it's difficult when you're in a recovery, or if you're who have that past, it's really difficult to just interact with people on a regular basis. So getting into a group, into a peer group, into a hobby is something that a recovery coach can look at in order to make the people in recovery be social and learn those skills. And spiritual means something different for each person as well. Everyone's on their own wellness journey here and in recovery. So that could mean religion, that could mean anything that goes along with religion or just something
Meditation,
bigger. Yeah,
meditation.
exactly, something bigger than yourself, something that you can interconnect with that is a higher calling, if you will. Okay, integrated care. So I know that we talked a little bit about this. Integrated care, especially for us at Progressive Group, really means that we're harmonizing, we're taking that clinical side, the medical side, and the real world goals, and combining them into one full plan, full treatment program, and it's individualized per person. So on the recovery side, we have the recovery coach, you could have the IOP, the group therapy, you can have your individual therapist, you can have your primary care physician. That's on the diagnostic side, it's on the clinical side. So maybe there's medicine assisted treatment, MAT. So if there's that aspect to look at, you get a whole team around you to help support and guide the person through recovery and good, successful outcomes. And then this is really the recovery ecosystem. We have lots of different availability and different tracks to go on in order to get each individual to become the person in recovery that they want to be. So each person has goals, the recovery coach is there to help guide those goals, set up those goals, and then connect the person with what they need for their individual goals to be attained. That includes fitness. So maybe it's signing up for a gym, maybe it's Zumba, maybe they're pointing out that there's other options available, like maybe they've never heard of Pilates, maybe you want to try that, or maybe it's squash or racquetball or something along those lines, something to be physical, hiking, running, all those things can play into that fitness aspect. Friends, again, creating those good, positive friends, somebody who's not going to get them back into their old habits, developing friendships on a more social level. Family, we bring in the family and make sure that anybody that's in recovery has a good support system outside of the facility. So that's cousins, that's nephews, that's uncles, that's aunts, that's friends who are family. We really bring them into the process, especially through the recovery coaches, to support that person and help them understand what this person's actually going through. Clubs is that social piece. So maybe it's finding an organization like the chamber and joining and becoming a young professional or something. And then we have the spirituality. I always get stumbled on that word. So maybe it's joining an organization, obviously, or maybe a church, community, and getting out in that community, and career, finding good full-time or part-time employment, and really getting on that track. So what is it that that person wants to do, can do, where their skill set lie, and how do we move them forward in a way that there is sustainable and will actually build a nice future. And then how do you know that all this is actually working? There have been lots of studies done, and they're all listed here, and I know it's super tiny, so we can get you the information if you'd like. But some of these say improved relationships with treatment providers. So the studies have been performed with people with or without recovery coaches, and the outcomes are better. And these are the outcomes. They're better when somebody has a recovery coach on their team. And so improved relationship with providers. So that really means that they're going to stick with their therapy and go to their doctor on time. They're more likely to do that if they have a recovery coach on their side. I could barely read it. Increased treatment retention. Again, they'll actually get through a whole IOP, the 8 weeks. They'll continue on and show up for their therapy treatments. They will continue to go to the different programs that are in their individualized plan. Increased satisfaction with overall treatment experience. Improved access to social supports. Greater housing stability, which is an interesting one. We don't think about it on a day-to-day basis, that having some place that's safe and isn't gonna be taken away from you to live, having a bed, a place to sleep, as fundamental to being a normal functioning human being. So having a recovery coach who can help you through the process. I mean, think about applying for a mortgage or just getting an apartment. It could be 100 steps, and at each one of those steps, you could be derailed completely. So having a recovery coach is someone who can help you get through those hurdles. So we deal with a lot of people who are not just in recovery, who have the substance use disorder, but have a co-occurring mental illness or anxiety or something like that. So any of these little stumbling blocks, these roadblocks, can really derail somebody completely off the tracks, and they could just shut down completely. So the recovery coach is someone they can call and say, look, I'm on the website right now, trying to figure this out, but I'm really having a tough time. Can you help me? And that recovery coach is dedicated to them, and they will help get over those stumbling blocks so that they can fulfill the needs of the application and find the housing. So having a recovery coach leads to better outcomes with long-term stable housing, which, as we just mentioned, is super important to being a normal functioning human being. And then we have some reductions here. We have reduced substance use, which is key, the whole point, right? Reduced rehospitalization rates and reduced relapse rates. We also have decreased emergency service utilization, which is something that you might not think about as well. So say somebody's having a full-blown panic attack, it might call 911, and this ambulance, go to the emergency room, where instead they could call a recovery coach and say, like, I'm going through this crazy spot, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm spiraling, please help me. The coach can say, okay, hold on, we talked about this, you learned about these skills in therapy, you learned about this program through your IOP, let's put this into use, this is what it's for, so let's walk through it. Breathing techniques and just thought experiments and trying to think differently, saying, okay, you're not in real danger, you're okay, let's calm down, take a moment to breathe. So the reduced hospitalization and medical use is a big deal.